The church doors burst open, and her fiancé's dead father walked in, alive, powerful, and watching her like a threat. The groom's face drained of color. 3 years of lies unraveled in seconds. But why had he hidden the billionaire all along? Welcome back, my amazing family and friends. If you're ready to dive into this unforgettable story, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Tomorrow, I'll bring you another incredible tale you absolutely can't miss. Let's get started, and don't forget to like and share to help our community grow. The morning sun filtered through the stained glass windows of St. Catherine's Church in Charleston, South Carolina, painting rainbow fractals across the stone floor. Jasmine Porter stood before the full-length mirror in the bride's preparation room, her hand smoothing down the ivory silk of her wedding dress, a dress she'd saved for 2 years to afford, working double shifts at the pediatric clinic where she was a nurse. Her reflection stared back at her, a black woman with natural curls pinned into an elegant updo, warm brown skin glowing against the cream fabric, and eyes that held equal parts joy and exhaustion. At 28, she'd learned that happiness was something you built with your own hands, brick by careful brick. "Girl, you are absolutely stunning," her best friend and maid of honor, Keisha, whispered from behind her, adjusting the delicate lace train. "Ryan is going to lose his mind when he sees you." Jasmine smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. She touched the simple pearl necklace at her throat, the only expensive thing she owned, a gift from Ryan on their first anniversary. Ryan Mitchell. Her fiancé. The man who'd walked into her life 3 years ago when his nephew was rushed into her emergency room with a severe asthma attack. She'd saved the boy's life, and Ryan had asked her out before she'd even finished her shift. He was everything she'd never expected: kind, humble, working as a middle school history teacher with a passion for helping underprivileged kids. They'd built their relationship on honesty. Or so she'd thought. "You okay, Jazz?" Keisha asked, her forehead creasing with concern. "Just nervous," Jasmine lied. The truth was more complicated. Over the past few weeks, small things had begun to unsettle her. The way Ryan had insisted on a small, intimate wedding, just 50 guests. How he'd seemed almost paranoid about photographers, making her promise not to post anything on social media. The strange phone calls he'd taken in another room, his voice dropping to urgent whispers. And then there was the day she'd found the letter. It had fallen from his jacket pocket 2 weeks ago, a thick, cream-colored envelope with an embossed return address she didn't recognize. She hadn't meant to read it, but the first line had stopped her cold. "Ryan, your father's health is declining. He wants to see you before it's too late." When she'd asked him about it that evening, Ryan's face had shuttered like a door slamming closed. "My father is dead, Jazz. I told you that. Someone's playing a sick joke." He'd taken the letter and burned it in the kitchen sink, his hands shaking. She'd let it go. What else could she do? Ryan never spoke about his family. She knew his mother had died when he was young, and he'd been raised by an aunt in a small town in North Carolina. His father, he'd said, had abandoned them and died years later. It was a wound he carried, and she'd respected his silence. But now, standing in her wedding dress, Jasmine couldn't shake the feeling that she was about to marry a stranger. 5 minutes. Someone called from outside the door. Keisha squeezed her hand. "This is it, girl. You're happily ever after." Jasmine forced herself to smile. She'd come too far to doubt now. She loved Ryan. Whatever secrets he carried, they would face them together. That's what marriage meant. She picked up a bouquet, white roses and lavender, simple and elegant, and took a deep breath. Across the church, in the groom's preparation room, Ryan Mitchell stood frozen before his own mirror, his hands gripping the edges of the sink so hard his knuckles had turned white. He was 32 years old, 6 feet tall with sandy brown hair and blue eyes that people said were kind. He'd spent the last decade building a life far away from the shadow of his last name. A life where he was just Ryan, a teacher, a volunteer coach, a man who measured his worth by the kids he helped, not the zeros in a bank account. His best man and college roommate, Trevor, watched him with growing alarm. "Dude, you look like you're about to throw up. Cold feet." Ryan shook his head. "I'm fine." But he wasn't fine. He was terrified. Because this morning, for the first time in 3 years, he'd turned on his old phone, the one connected to his previous life. And there had been 17 missed calls from his father's personal assistant. The last voicemail had been brief. "Mr. Mitchell, your father is en route to Charleston. He'll be at the church. I'm sorry. I tried to stop him. Ryan had smashed the phone against the wall. For 3 years, he'd kept his two worlds separate. Jasmine knew nothing about the Mitchell fortune, nothing about Mitchell Global Industries, the multinational conglomerate his father had built from nothing. She didn't know that Ryan was the sole heir to a $12 billion empire. She thought he lived paycheck to paycheck like she did, choosing a teacher's salary over more lucrative careers because he loved working with kids. All of that was true. But it wasn't the whole truth. Ryan had fled his father's world at 23, exhausted by the manipulation, the constant pressure to become someone he wasn't, the way wealth poisoned every relationship. His father, Harrison Mitchell, was a titan of industry, ruthless, brilliant, and incapable of seeing people as anything other than assets or obstacles. When Ryan left, he'd made his father promise, "Stay out of my life, and I'll come back when I'm ready." Harrison had agreed, but only because he believed his son would eventually crawl back, unable to survive without the family money. Ryan had proven him wrong. He'd built a life that mattered, a life with meaning. And then he'd met Jasmine, beautiful, compassionate Jasmine, who saw the world in shades of care and kindness, who'd never judged him for his modest apartment or second-hand car. He'd fallen in love with the way she loved him, for who he was, not what he had. But he'd lied to her. Every day, with every omission. And now his father was coming to expose everything. Ryan. Trevor's voice cut through his spiraling thoughts. Whatever's going on, you need to talk to Jasmine. That woman is about to marry you. She deserves the truth. Ryan turned to face his friend, his jaw tight. There's no time. The ceremony starts in 5 minutes. Then you've got 5 minutes to be honest with her. But Ryan didn't move. He couldn't. Because once Jasmine knew who he really was, who his family was, everything would change. She'd look at him differently. She'd wonder what else he'd lied about. She'd question whether he'd ever truly loved her, or if this had all been some elaborate game. The door opened, and the wedding coordinator poked her head in. "It's time, gentlemen." Ryan straightened his tie with trembling hands. He'd made his choice 3 years ago. He just had to get through the next hour, marry the woman he loved, and then, somehow, explain everything. He followed Trevor out into the hallway, his heart hammering against his ribs. The church was beautiful. Jasmine had insisted on keeping it simple. No excessive flowers, no elaborate decorations. Just candles and white ribbons and the people who mattered most to them. Ryan took his place at the altar, flanking the officiant, Father Gregory, who'd known Jasmine since she was a child. The small congregation settled into their seats, Jasmine's family, her co-workers from the hospital, a handful of his fellow teachers. Faces he recognized, people who knew him as Ryan the teacher, not Ryan the billionaire's son. The organ began to play. This was it. The doors at the back of the church opened, and Jasmine appeared, radiant in her ivory dress, her arm linked with her father's. She was smiling, really smiling, and Ryan felt something crack inside his chest. She deserved better than his lies. But then, just as Jasmine and her father took their first steps down the aisle, the heavy wooden doors of the church burst open again. The organ stuttered to silence. Every head turned. And Harrison Mitchell walked in. Ryan's father was 70 years old, but he moved like a man half his age, tall, imposing, with steel-grey hair and eyes the same sharp blue as Ryan's. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than most people's cars, and he was flanked by 2 men in dark suits who could only be private security. The air in the church shifted, thickening with confusion and shock. Jasmine froze halfway down the aisle, her bouquet trembling in her hands. Her father whispered something to her, but she didn't respond. She was staring at the stranger who'd just disrupted her wedding, her mind racing to make sense of it. Ryan felt the blood drain from his face. "Ryan," Harrison Mitchell's voice rang out across the church, smooth and commanding. "I apologize for the interruption, but we need to talk. Now." Father Gregory stepped forward, his voice gentle but firm. "Sir, this is a private ceremony. I'll have to ask you to." "I'm the groom's father," Harrison said simply, and the words detonated like a bomb. A wave of murmurs rippled through the congregation. Jasmine's father turned to look at Ryan, his expression morphing from confusion to something darker, betrayal. But it was Jasmine's face that destroyed Ryan. She was staring at him now, her bouquet forgotten, her lips parted in disbelief. The joy that had lit her features moments ago had evaporated, replaced by something raw and broken. "Ryan." Her voice was barely a whisper, but in the stunned silence of the church, everyone heard it. Your father is dead. You said he was dead. Ryan opened his mouth, but no words came out. Harrison Mitchell smiled, a cold, satisfied smile, and began walking down the aisle. What would you do if you discovered your partner had been hiding their true identity from you? Let me know in the comments below. The silence in St. Catherine's Church was suffocating. Harrison Mitchell moved down the aisle with the casual authority of a man who'd spent his life bending rooms to his will. His expensive leather shoes clicked against the stone floor, each step measured, deliberate, designed for maximum impact. Jasmine stood frozen, her wedding dress suddenly feeling too tight, too heavy. Her father's hand on her arm was the only thing keeping her upright. She watched this stranger, this man who couldn't possibly be real, approach the altar where her fiancé stood, pale and silent. Ryan, she said again, louder this time. Her voice cracked on his name. Who is this man? Ryan's mouth opened and closed. He looked like he was drowning. Harrison reached the front of the church and turned to face the congregation, his hands clasped behind his back like a CEO addressing a board meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for this disruption. My name is Harrison Mitchell. I'm Ryan's father, and apparently, my son has been keeping secrets. The murmurs grew louder. Jasmine felt her father tense beside her. You need to leave, Ryan finally managed, his voice hoarse. Now. I don't think so. Harrison's smile didn't waver. You've been avoiding my calls for 3 years, son. You've refused every olive branch, ignored every message. So I'm here to remind you who you are, and what you're throwing away. Keisha appeared at Jasmine's other side, her hand finding Jasmine's free one and squeezing tight. Jazz, honey, do you want me to call security? But Jasmine couldn't answer. Her mind was spinning, trying to process what she was hearing. Ryan's father was alive. Ryan had lied to her. But why? What possible reason? Mr. Mitchell, Father Gregory stepped forward, his voice firm despite the chaos. This is highly inappropriate. If you have family business to discuss, perhaps you could. Did my son tell you he's a billionaire? Harrison interrupted, his voice cutting through the church like a blade. The world tilted. Jasmine heard the words, but they didn't make sense. They couldn't make sense. Ryan was a teacher. They lived in a modest apartment in downtown Charleston. They'd spent months saving for this wedding, cutting corners, making compromises. He drove a 15-year-old Honda. He brought lunch from home in a paper bag. That's not, Ryan started, but his father spoke over him. Ryan Mitchell is the sole heir to Mitchell Global Industries. $12 billion, give or take a few $100 million depending on the market. Harrison turned to look directly at Jasmine, his eyes appraising her like she was a balance sheet. Did he mention that to you, miss? Porter, Jasmine whispered. Jasmine Porter. Her legs felt weak. Her father's grip tightened, holding her steady. Jasmine, Harrison said her name like he was tasting it. My son has been living like a pauper for 3 years, playing dress-up as a public school teacher, hiding from his responsibilities. I assume he fed you the same fairy tale he's been telling himself, that is some kind of noble working man, making a difference in the world. Stop talking. Ryan's voice was sharp now, desperate. He stepped down from the altar, moving toward Jasmine. Dad, stop. This isn't. It's the truth. Harrison's expression hardened. The truth you've been too much of a coward to tell your fiancé. Jasmine felt something crack inside her chest, something that had been holding her together, keeping her whole. She looked at Ryan, really looked at him, and saw a stranger. Is it true? The question came out steady, but her hands were shaking so badly she dropped her bouquet. White roses scattered across the floor. Is your father? Ryan's face answered before his words could. Jazz, I can explain. I wanted to tell you, I did, but Is it true? The church held its breath. Yes, Ryan whispered. It's true. The world stopped. Jasmine felt Keisha's arm wrap around her waist, felt her father's hand on her shoulder, but she couldn't look away from Ryan. From the man she'd been about to marry. The man who'd looked her in the eye every single day for 3 years and lied. You told me your father was dead. Her voice was hollow now, emotionless, the way it got when she had to deliver bad news to a patient's family, when she had to lock her feelings away to function. You told me you grew up poor. You told me. She took off her engagement ring, the simple diamond band Ryan had presented her with a year ago, claiming he'd saved for months to afford it, and stared at it. Did you even save for this? Or was that a lie too? Ryan's silence was answer enough. Jasmine's hand closed around the ring. I need you to leave. Jazz, please. Leave. The word came out as a sob. I can't. I can't look at you right now. I can't be in this room with you. I need you to go. Ryan stood there, his face crumbling, and for a moment Jasmine almost went to him. Because she'd loved him. God, she'd loved him so much. But then she remembered the letter he'd burned. The phone calls he'd hidden. The 3 years of carefully constructed lies. Go, she whispered. Trevor appeared in the doorway, reading the room immediately. Come on, man. Let's give her some space. Ryan let himself be led away, but at the door, he turned back one last time. I love you, Jazz. That was never a lie. I swear to you, that was never a lie. The doors closed. And Jasmine collapsed. Keisha was there in an instant, catching her before she hit the floor, holding her as 3 years of love and trust shattered into 1,000 irreparable pieces. I've got you, Keisha murmured, stroking her hair. I've got you, girl. Just breathe. But Jasmine couldn't breathe. She couldn't think. She could only feel the weight of betrayal crushing her chest, suffocating her. She'd been about to marry a man she didn't really know. And now, standing in her wedding dress with mascara running down her face, she had to figure out what to do next. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of numbness and rage. Jasmine refused to go home, couldn't go home, to the apartment she'd shared with Ryan for the past year. Instead, Keisha drove her to her own place, a cozy 2-bedroom in West Ashley, and installed Jasmine in the guest room with strict instructions to feel whatever you need to feel. Jasmine felt everything and nothing all at once. She spent the first night still in her wedding dress, sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the engagement ring in her palm. Keisha had finally convinced her to change into sweats around 3 a.m., carefully hanging the dress in the closet like it was evidence of a crime. Maybe it was. By Sunday morning, Jasmine's phone had exploded with messages. Her mother had called 17 times. Her father had sent a single text, "Baby girl, I'm here when you're ready to talk." Her co-workers from the hospital had created a group chat that was equal parts supportive and curious, everyone trying to piece together what had happened. And Ryan. Ryan had called 43 times. Left 22 voicemails. Sent countless texts that evolved from desperate apologies to pleading explanations to resigned acceptance of her silence. Jasmine read none of them. Listened to none of them. She simply watched the notifications pile up like debris after a hurricane. You should eat something, Keisha said gently, appearing in the doorway with a plate of scrambled eggs and toast. You haven't had anything since yesterday morning. Jasmine accepted the plate mechanically, but the thought of eating made her stomach turn. I don't understand how I didn't see it, she said, her voice hoarse from crying. 3 years, Keisha. 3 years and I never suspected anything. Keisha sat beside her on the bed, wrapping an arm around Jasmine's shoulders. Because you're not the kind of person who looks for lies. You trust people. That's not a flaw, Jazz, that's who you are. Maybe it is a flaw. Jasmine set the plate aside, untouched. Maybe I'm just naive. Stupid. Don't you dare. Keisha's voice turned sharp. Ryan lied to you. That's on him, not you. He's the one who spent 3 years building a relationship on a foundation of bullshit. You did nothing wrong. But it didn't feel that way. Jasmine kept replaying every moment, every conversation, searching for the signs she'd missed. Had there been clues? Red flags she'd ignored because she was too in love to see them? The expensive watch he wore sometimes, claiming it was a family heirloom. The way he never seemed stressed about money, even when his car needed major repairs. His vague answers about his childhood, his family, his life before Charleston. She'd let him keep his secrets because she trusted him. What a fool she'd been. I need to get out of here, Jasmine said suddenly, standing up. I need to move. I can't just sit here and... Her phone rang, cutting her off. She glanced at the screen, expecting Ryan's name again. Instead, it read, Harrison Mitchell. Jasmine stared at it, her heart hammering. How did he even have her number? Don't answer it, Keisha warned. That man is trouble. But Jasmine was already swiping to accept the call. She needed answers, and Ryan clearly wasn't going to give them to her. Miss Porter. Harrison's smooth, authoritative voice filled her ear. Thank you for taking my call. I imagine you have questions. You have no right to contact me, Jasmine said, her voice cold. I have every right to protect my son from making a catastrophic mistake, Harrison replied evenly. And before you hang up, you should know that I'm calling to offer you answers, the kind Ryan will never give you. Meet me for coffee. 1 hour. I'll send a car. I don't want your car, and I don't want your answers. Are you certain about that? Harrison's tone shifted, becoming almost sympathetic. Miss Porter, Jasmine, I understand you're angry. You have every right to be. My son deceived you in ways that are unconscionable. But if you want to understand why he did what he did, if you want the full truth about the man you are about to marry, then you need to hear it from someone who knows him better than anyone. Jasmine's jaw clenched. His father who he hates? Who he ran away from? Who destroyed his wedding? The father who raised him? Who knows his patterns, his fears, his weaknesses? Harrison paused. The father who can tell you whether this is the first time he's done something like this. The words hit like a punch to the gut. What do you mean, the first time? Meet me, and I'll explain everything. The Rooftop Cafe, downtown. 11 o'clock. I'll be waiting. The line went dead. Jasmine stood there, phone in hand, her mind racing. Keisha was shaking her head vigorously. Jazz, no. This man is manipulating you. He crashed your wedding. He's Ryan's enemy. You can't trust anything he says. Maybe not, Jasmine agreed. But Ryan lied to me for 3 years. His father lied to me for all of 3 minutes before telling me the truth. So who should I trust? Neither of them. Keisha grabbed Jasmine's shoulders, forcing eye contact. You trust yourself. You trust what you know. Don't let either of these men manipulate you into. I'm going, Jasmine said firmly. I need to know the truth. All of it. And if that means sitting down with Harrison Mitchell, then that's what I'm going to do. Keisha sighed, recognizing the stubborn set of Jasmine's jaw. Fine. But I'm coming with you. Keisha. Non-negotiable. You want to walk into the lion's den? Fine. But you're not doing it alone. The Rooftop Cafe was exactly the kind of place Jasmine had never been able to afford. Sleek, modern, with panoramic views of Charleston Harbor and prices that required a second mortgage. Harrison Mitchell sat at a corner table, away from the other patrons, a cappuccino untouched in front of him. He stood as Jasmine and Keisha approached, his manners impeccable despite the devastation he'd caused 2 days ago. Miss Porter. Thank you for coming. His eyes flicked to Keisha. And you've brought a friend. Wise. Let's get one thing straight, Keisha said before Jasmine could speak. You have exactly 30 minutes to say whatever you need to say. After that, we're gone. And if you try to manipulate my friend or hurt her in any way, I don't care how many billions you have, I will make your life hell. A ghost of a smile crossed Harrison's face. Noted. Please, sit. They Saturday. Jasmine folded her hands on the table, forcing herself to meet Harrison's gaze. Up close, she could see the resemblance to Ryan. The same sharp blue eyes, the same strong jawline. But where Ryan's face was open and warm, Harrison's was carefully controlled, revealing nothing. You said you had answers, Jasmine began. So talk. Harrison took a measured sip of his cappuccino. My son is a coward. Jasmine blinked. Whatever she'd expected, it wasn't that. Excuse me. Ryan is brilliant, compassionate, and idealistic to a fault. He's also a coward who runs from anything difficult rather than facing it head-on. Harrison set down his cup. Do you know why he really left my company 3 years ago? Because you're a controlling bastard who tried to turn him into something he wasn't. Keisha interjected. Harrison's expression didn't change. Because I asked him to make a choice. His fiancé at the time, a woman named Victoria Ashford, came from old money, very prestigious family. She wanted Ryan to take over the company, to step into his role as my heir. I agreed with her. Ryan was 29 years old, more than ready to shoulder the responsibility. Jasmine felt her blood run cold. His fiancé. He didn't mention her. Harrison raised an eyebrow. I'm not surprised. Ryan has a pattern of erasing inconvenient truths. Victoria and Ryan were together for 4 years. They were engaged for 1. And then, 2 months before the wedding, Ryan called it off. He told her he couldn't marry someone who loved his money more than she loved him. He told me he was done with the family business, done with the wealth, done with all of it. And then he disappeared. Jasmine's hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against the table. You're lying. I wish I were. Harrison pulled out his phone, tapped the screen a few times, and slid it across the table. But I'm not. On the screen was a photograph. Ryan, younger and smiling, his arm around a stunning blonde woman in an evening gown. They were at some kind of gala, surrounded by people in tuxedos and designer dresses. Ryan looked comfortable in that world. Happy, even. Jasmine's throat tightened. Who is she? Victoria Ashford. Now Victoria Hawthorne. She married a hedge fund manager 6 months after Ryan left. They have 2 children. Harrison took back his phone. My point, Miss Porter, is that this isn't the first time Ryan has run from his identity. It's not the first time he's tried to pretend he's someone he's not. And it won't be the last. Why are you telling me this? Jasmine demanded. What do you want from me? Harrison leaned back in his chair, studying her with those cold, calculating eyes. I want you to understand what you're getting into. If you forgive Ryan, if you marry him, this pattern will continue. He'll lie to you about other things. He'll hide parts of himself because he's ashamed of who he is. And one day, you'll wake up and realize you're married to a stranger. As opposed to what? Keisha cut in. Walking away and letting you control him forever. As opposed to wasting years of her life on a man who doesn't have the courage to be honest. Harrison's gaze never left Jasmine's face. You're a nurse. You help people. You save lives. You deserve a partner who meets you with the same level of integrity and authenticity. My son can't give you that. Jasmine felt tears burning behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of this man. You don't know Ryan, she said quietly. Not the man I fell in love with. Don't I? Harrison's voice was almost gentle. Tell me, Miss Porter, in 3 years, how many times did Ryan mention his family? His past? The life he left behind? Jasmine said nothing. How many times did he deflect when you asked personal questions? How many stories did he tell you that, looking back, were carefully edited to remove any trace of wealth or privilege? Still, Jasmine remained silent. That's what I thought. Harrison stood, pulling a business card from his pocket and placing it on the table. My son is in love with the idea of being someone else. Someone noble and selfless and untainted by money. But that's not who he is. And pretending won't change reality. He straightened his suit jacket. When you're ready to hear the whole truth, about Ryan, about his past, about the kind of man he really is, call me. I'll answer any question you have. Harrison walked away, leaving Jasmine and Keisha sitting in stunned silence. Keisha reached across the table, gripping Jasmine's hand. Jazz, you can't listen to him. He's trying to poison you against Ryan. It's manipulation, pure and simple. But Jasmine was thinking about Victoria Ashford. About the photograph of Ryan at that gala, looking like he belonged. About the fact that this wasn't the first time he'd hidden who he was. What if he's right? She whispered. What if this is just who Ryan is? Someone who runs and hides and lies. Then you make your own decision, Keisha said firmly. Not based on what his father says, but based on what you know. On what you've experienced. Ryan lied to you. Yes. That's unforgivable. But don't let Harrison Mitchell tell you who Ryan is. Figure it out yourself. Jasmine looked down at the business card on the table. Heavy cardstock, embossed lettering, Harrison Mitchell, CEO, Mitchell Global Industries. She picked it up and slipped it into her pocket. That evening, Jasmine finally went home. Keisha had offered to come with her, but Jasmine needed to do this alone. She needed to face the apartment she'd shared with Ryan, the life they'd built, the future that had evaporated in the span of a single afternoon. The apartment was exactly as she'd left it Saturday morning, her makeup still scattered across the bathroom counter from getting ready, Ryan's suit jacket draped over the couch, the refrigerator stocked with food for the small reception they'd planned to host after the ceremony. Everything frozen in time, waiting for a celebration that would never come. Jasmine walked through the room slowly, seeing them with new eyes. The modest furniture they'd bought second-hand. The mismatched dishes. The single piece of expensive art on the wall, a painting Ryan had claimed was a gift from a former student's parent. Had that been a lie too? She found herself in their bedroom, staring at the closet. Ryan's side was meticulously organized, his teacher clothes hung neatly, khakis, button-downs, a few ties. Nothing expensive. Nothing that screamed wealth. But in the back, pushed to the corner, was a garment bag she'd never paid attention to. Jasmine unzipped it. Inside was a tuxedo, clearly custom-made, clearly expensive. Designer label, perfect tailoring. The kind of thing you wore to galas and charity events and society weddings. The kind of thing Ryan Mitchell, billionaire heir, would own. She sank onto the bed, the tuxedo in her lap, and finally let herself cry. Not the desperate, broken sobs from Saturday. These were quieter tears, born of grief and loss and the slow, painful realization that the man she'd loved might have only ever been a carefully constructed fiction. Her phone buzzed. Another text from Ryan. Jazz, please. I know you're home. I can see the lights on. Please let me explain. I'll tell you everything. I'll answer every question. Just please, give me a chance. Jasmine looked at the message for a long moment. Then she stood, walked to the front door, and opened it. Ryan was sitting on the hallway floor outside their apartment, his back against the wall, his head in his hands. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. His hair was a mess, his clothes wrinkled, dark circles under his eyes. When he heard the door open, his head snapped up. Hope and fear warred across his face. Jazz, he breathed, scrambling to his feet. You have 1 hour, Jasmine said, her voice flat. 1 hour to tell me everything. And if I catch you in another lie, if I even suspect you're hiding something, we're done. Forever. Do you understand? Ryan nodded frantically. Yes. Yes, I understand. Thank you. God, Jazz, thank you. She stepped aside, letting him into the apartment. And as Ryan walked past her, as she closed the door behind them, Jasmine steeled herself for the truth. Whatever it was. However much it hurt. She deserved to know. They sat at opposite ends of the couch, the same couch where they'd spent countless evenings watching movies, where Ryan had proposed a year ago, where they'd planned their future together. Now it felt like a chasm separated them. Start at the beginning, Jasmine said. And don't leave anything out. Ryan took a shaky breath. My mother died when I was 7. Cancer. My father threw himself into his work, building his company into an empire. I barely saw him growing up. I was raised by nannies and tutors and boarding school headmasters. He stared at his hands, his voice rough with old pain. When I was 18, my father sat me down and told me exactly what my life was going to be. I'd go to Harvard Business School. I'd work my way up through Mitchell Global. I'd marry someone from the right family, someone who understood our world. And eventually, I'd take over the company. My whole life, planned out, no input from me required. But you went along with it, Jasmine said quietly. For a while, yes. I thought maybe he was right. Maybe that was who I was supposed to be. Ryan finally looked up at her, his eyes bloodshot. I met Victoria when I was 25. She was everything my father wanted, beautiful, educated, from a family with the right connections. And I convinced myself I loved her. Did you? The question hurt to ask, but Jasmine needed to know. I thought I did. But looking back, I think I loved the idea of her. The way she fit into that world. The way being with her made sense. Ryan's voice cracked. But she didn't love me, Jazz. She loved the Mitchell name. The money. The status. Every conversation we had was about the company, about society events, about maintaining our image. She wanted me to be this thing, this polished, perfect heir, and I couldn't breathe. He ran his hands through his hair, his frustration palpable even now. 2 months before our wedding, I found out she'd been talking to my father behind my back. Planning my future without me. Deciding which charities I'd support, which boards I'd join, even which friends I should keep. And I realized I was about to spend the rest of my life being someone else's puppet. So you ran, Jasmine said. So I ran, Ryan agreed. I called off the wedding. I walked away from the company. I told my father I needed to figure out who I was without the money, without the name. And I came to Charleston because it was far enough away that no one would recognize me, but close enough that I could still, I don't know, still feel like myself. And you became a teacher. I became a teacher, Ryan smiled, but it was sad. Because that's what I'd always wanted to be, before my father told me it wasn't good enough. Before I learned that Mitchell men don't waste their education on public service. I wanted to help kids, Jazz. I wanted to do something that mattered, not just something that made money. Jasmine felt her anger wavering, but she held on to it. That doesn't explain why you lied to me. Why you let me believe your father was dead. Why you hid who you are for 3 years. Ryan leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. Because I was terrified. After Victoria, I was so scared of being with someone who only saw the money. And then I met you, this incredible woman who saved my nephew's life without even thinking about it, who dedicated her life to helping people. And you looked at me like I was just me. Just Ryan. Not Ryan Mitchell the billionaire. Just a guy. So you lied, Jasmine repeated, her voice hard. So I omitted, Ryan corrected, then winced at how that sounded. Which is the same thing, I know. I know, Jazz. But every time I thought about telling you, I'd picture the way you'd look at me differently. The way you'd question everything. And I couldn't stand the thought of losing you. You lost me anyway, Jasmine said quietly. The second your father walked into that church. Ryan's face crumpled. I know. And I hate myself for it. But Jazz, everything else was real. My feelings for you, the life we built, the plans we made, all of that was real. I never lied about loving you. You just lied about everything else. Jasmine stood up, needing distance. She walked to the window, staring out at the Charleston skyline. Your father told me something today. She heard Ryan tense behind her. What did he tell you? He said you're a coward who runs from difficult things. That you have a pattern of hiding who you are because you're ashamed of it. Jasmine turned to face him. Is he right? Ryan was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Maybe. I don't know. I just know that I've spent my whole life feeling like I had to be someone I'm not. And with you, for the first time ever, I felt like I could just be. But you couldn't, Jasmine said. Because you were lying the entire time. You can't be yourself while pretending to be someone else, Ryan. That's not how it works. I know that now. Ryan stood, taking a tentative step toward her. Jazz, I know I don't deserve another chance. I know I've destroyed your trust. But if you'll let me, I want to spend the rest of my life proving to you that I can be the man you deserve. No more lies. No more secrets. Just the truth, no matter how hard it is. Jasmine looked at him, really looked at him. At the man she'd loved for 3 years. The man who'd made her laugh, who'd supported her dreams, who'd held her when her grandmother died. The man who'd lied to her about who he was. I don't know if I can forgive you, she said honestly. I don't know if I can ever trust you again. I understand. Ryan's voice broke. But can you at least think about it? Please? I'll answer any question you have. I'll introduce you to my world if you want. I'll walk away from it forever if that's what you need. Just please, don't give up on us yet. Jasmine closed her eyes, exhaustion washing over her. She'd been awake for nearly 48 hours, running on emotion and adrenaline. She couldn't make this decision now. Not like this. I need time, she said finally. I need space to think. To process all of this. How much time? Ryan asked desperately. I don't know. Jasmine opened her eyes. But you need to leave. Go stay with Trevor or get a hotel or... I don't care. But you can't be here. I can't heal with you here. Ryan nodded, tears streaming down his face. Okay, I'll go. But Jazz? I love you. That's the one thing you never have to question. I love you more than anything in this world. He gathered a few things, clothes, toiletries, his laptop, and headed for the door. At the threshold, he paused. For what it's worth, my father's wrong about me. I'm not ashamed of who I am. I'm just ashamed of what that world did to me. What it does to everyone in it. I didn't want that for us. Then he was gone. And Jasmine was alone in the apartment, surrounded by the ghost of a future that would never be. She pulled out her phone and stared at Harrison Mitchell's business card, still in her pocket. She had questions. So many questions. And only one person seemed willing to give her real answers. She dialed the number. Harrison answered on the first ring. Miss Porter. I've been expecting your call. I want to know everything, Jasmine said. About Ryan. About your family. About the world he came from. Everything. Then come to my home tomorrow evening. 6 o'clock. I'll send the address. Harrison paused. And Miss Porter? Bring your questions. All of them. It's time you learned the truth about the Mitchell family. The line went dead. Jasmine stood in her apartment, wedding dress still hanging in the closet, engagement ring still in her purse, and wondered if she was making a terrible mistake. But she needed answers. And tomorrow, she'd get them. What would you do if you were in Jasmine's position? Would you give Ryan a second chance, or would the lies be too much to forgive? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear what you think. Harrison Mitchell's estate was 30 minutes outside Charleston, hidden behind iron gates and oak trees dripping with Spanish moss. As the Uber wound up the private drive, Jasmine pressed her face to the window, watching the landscape transform from modest southern charm to obscene wealth. The house, if you could call it that, was a sprawling colonial mansion that looked like it had been airlifted from a movie set. White columns, manicured lawns, a circular fountain in the front courtyard. This wasn't just money. This was generational, institutional wealth. This was the world Ryan had come from. The world he'd hidden from her. The Uber driver whistled low. Some people sure live different, huh? Yeah, Jasmine murmured. They sure do. She debated bringing Keisha again, but ultimately decided against it. Whatever Harrison was going to tell her, she needed to hear it alone. She needed to process it without filters, without well-meaning friends trying to protect her from painful truths. A man in a crisp suit, some kind of house manager or butler, greeted her at the front door. Miss Porter. Mr. Mitchell is expecting you in the library. This way, please. Jasmine followed him through halls lined with expensive art and antique furniture. Everything screamed old money, carefully curated taste, the kind of home that appeared in architectural magazines. Ryan had grown up here. In this cold, perfect museum of wealth. The library was exactly what she'd expected, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, leather furniture, a fireplace that probably cost more than her car. Harrison stood by the window, looking out over the grounds, a glass of amber liquid in his hand. Miss Porter, he said without turning. Thank you for coming. Can I offer you a drink? Scotch? Wine? Water is fine, Jasmine said, her voice steady despite the nerves jumping in her stomach. Harrison gestured to the house manager, who nodded and disappeared. Then Harrison turned to face her, and Jasmine was struck again by how much he looked like Ryan, and how different. Same features, opposite energy. Please, sit. Harrison indicated a leather chair near the fireplace. Make yourself comfortable. Jasmine sat, perching on the edge of the seat. She wasn't here to get comfortable. She was here for answers. The house manager returned with a crystal glass of water, which Jasmine accepted with a quiet thank you. Then they were alone. Harrison took the chair across from her, studying her with those sharp, calculating eyes. You spoke with Ryan. It wasn't a question. How did you know? Jasmine asked. Because you're here. If you'd accepted his apologies and forgiven him, you wouldn't need to talk to me. Harrison took a sip of his scotch. So, what did my son tell you? That you controlled his life. That his ex-fiancé only wanted him for his money. That he ran away to find himself. Jasmine set her water down, untouched. That he's not ashamed of who he is, just ashamed of what this world did to him. Harrison's lips quirked in something that wasn't quite a smile. My son is an excellent storyteller. He always has been. It's one of his most dangerous talents. Meaning he told you his version of the truth. The version where he's the victim, I'm the villain, and his ex-fiancée was a gold digger. Harrison set down his glass. Would you like to hear the actual truth? Jasmine's jaw tightened. That's why I'm here. Very well. Harrison leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "Let me tell you about my son. Ryan is brilliant, graduated top of his class at Harvard, had a gift for strategy and negotiation that could have made him one of the greatest business minds of his generation, but is also fundamentally unable to accept who he is." What does that mean? It means Ryan has spent his entire life resenting the advantages he was born with, while simultaneously benefiting from them at every turn. Harrison's voice was matter-of-fact, almost clinical. He attended the best schools money could buy, then complained they were too elitist. He worked at my company for 5 years, taking a generous salary, then acted like he was some kind of martyr for showing up to work. He's been riding on the Mitchell name his entire life while claiming he wants nothing to do with it. Jasmine felt her defenses rising. "So you're saying he should just accept being controlled by you? Being told who to marry and what to do with his life?" "I'm saying he should have the courage to choose." Harrison's gaze sharpened. "I never told Ryan who to marry. I expressed an opinion about Victoria Ashford. Yes. I thought she was a good match, intelligent, ambitious, from a family that understood our world. But Ryan proposed to her of his own free will. He dated her for 4 years before I even met her." Jasmine blinked. "That's not what Ryan said." "I'm sure it's not." Harrison stood, walking to a desk in the corner. He opened a drawer and pulled out a folder, thick with papers. "Ryan has rewritten history to suit his narrative. In his version, I'm the puppet master and he's the innocent victim. The reality is far more complicated." He handed the folder to Jasmine. "These are emails between Ryan and Victoria. From their entire relationship. Read them." Jasmine hesitated. "How do you have these?" "Victoria gave them to me after Ryan left. She was devastated, confused. She wanted to understand what went wrong." Harrison's expression softened slightly. "Despite what my son believes, she genuinely loved him. She just happened to also love the life they could build together. There's nothing wrong with that." Jasmine opened the folder, scanning the first few emails. They were dated 6 years ago, long before Ryan had supposedly been pressured into the relationship. "Ryan, last night was perfect. I can't stop thinking about you. When can I see you again?" Victoria. "V. You're incredible. Dinner Friday? I want to take you somewhere special." Ah. The emails progressed, casual dating turning into something deeper. Victoria wrote about Ryan's kindness, his intelligence, how he made her laugh. Ryan wrote about her strength, her ambition, how she challenged him. There was nothing transactional about it. Nothing that suggested she was only interested in his money. Jasmine flipped forward, finding emails from later in the relationship. Plans for their future. Victoria excited about Ryan joining the company, but equally excited about the charity work they could do together. Ryan talking about wanting to make a difference, wanting to use his position for good. "They looked happy," Jasmine said quietly. "They were happy," Harrison replied. "For a long time. Until Ryan started to spiral." Spiral. Harrison sat back down, his expression grave. About 6 months before the wedding, Ryan became erratic. He'd cancel plans at the last minute. Miss important meetings. Spend days alone in his apartment, not answering calls. Victoria was worried. I was worried. We thought he was having a breakdown. He pulled another document from the folder, a medical record. Ryan was diagnosed with severe anxiety and depression. His therapist recommended he take time off work, process what he was feeling. Instead, Ryan convinced himself that the problem wasn't his mental health, it was his life. His engagement. His family. Everything. Jasmine stared at the medical record, her mind reeling. Ryan had never mentioned any of this. Never told her he'd struggled with depression, that he'd been in therapy. More lies by omission. He called off the wedding via email, Harrison continued, his voice tight with old anger. Didn't have the courage to face Victoria in person. Just sent a brief message saying he couldn't do it, that she deserved better, that he needed to find himself. Then he emptied his bank account, turned off his phone, and disappeared. We didn't hear from him for 2 months. Jesus, Jasmine whispered. Victoria was destroyed. Not because of the money, her family has plenty, but because the man she loved abandoned her without explanation. Without closure. Without even the basic decency of a conversation. Harrison's jaw clenched. That's who my son is, Miss Porter. When things get difficult, when he's forced to confront hard truths about himself, he runs. And he leaves devastation in his wake. Jasmine's hands were shaking. She set the folder down on her lap. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know what you're getting into. Harrison leaned forward, his voice intense. If you take Ryan back, this will happen again. Maybe not exactly the same way, but the pattern will repeat. He'll keep secrets. He'll make decisions without consulting you. And when things get hard, when real life intrudes on his fantasy of being a simple teacher with a simple life, he'll run. Just like he did with Victoria. Just like he did with me. You're trying to turn me against him, Jasmine said, but her voice lacked conviction. I'm trying to save you from wasting years of your life on a man who isn't capable of the honesty and commitment you deserve. Harrison's expression was almost gentle now. I know you think I'm the villain in Ryan's story. Maybe I am. I'm demanding. I have high expectations. I pushed him hard because I believed in his potential. But I never lied to him, Miss Porter. I never pretended to be something I wasn't. Can he say the same? Jasmine closed her eyes, feeling tears threaten. Because Harrison was right, wasn't he? Ryan had lied. Had hidden fundamental truths about himself. Had built their entire relationship on a foundation of omissions and half-truths. What do you want from me? She asked quietly. Why do you care whether I forgive him or not? Harrison was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. Because my son is miserable. He's been miserable for years, running from who he is, convinced that wealth is a poison and that the only way to be good is to be poor. And I'm tired of watching him destroy his life, and the lives of people who care about him, because he can't accept reality. He stood, walking back to the window. I don't need Ryan to take over my company. I have capable executives, a solid succession plan. But I do need my son to find peace. And he'll never have that until he stops running. Until he accepts all of who he is, the privilege, the responsibility, the complexity. Until he learns that he can be wealthy and still be good. And you think leaving him is how he learns that? Jasmine asked. I think you staying with him will only enable his delusions. Harrison turned to face her. He'll continue to play at being poor, continue to hide from his identity, and he'll drag you down with him. You deserve better. You deserve a partner who is fully present, fully honest. That's not who Ryan is. Jasmine stood, her legs unsteady. She felt like she was drowning, pulled in too many directions at once. I need to go. Of course. Harrison walked her to the door. Miss Porter, Jasmine, I hope you make the choice that's best for you. Not for Ryan. Not for me. For you. At the door, Jasmine paused. Did you love Ryan's mother? The question seemed to catch Harrison off guard. His carefully controlled expression cracked, just for a moment. Very much. She was the only person who ever saw past the money, past the power. She saw me. Just me. Then maybe you understand better than you think, Jasmine said quietly. Why Ryan wanted that for himself. She left before Harrison could respond, walking out into the cool evening air, her mind a chaos of competing truths. Jasmine didn't go home. Instead, she asked the Uber driver to take her to Waterfront Park, where she and Ryan had had their first date. Where he'd told her about his dream of helping kids, of making a difference in the world. Where he'd first lied to her. She sat on a bench overlooking Charleston Harbor, watching the sun set over the water, and tried to make sense of everything. Ryan had lied. But Harrison was manipulating her. Both things could be true. Ryan had hidden his wealth. But maybe he'd had reasons. Trauma from his previous relationship, fear of being valued for the wrong things. That didn't make it right, but it made it understandable. Ryan had run from Victoria. But he'd also been struggling with depression, with an identity crisis that nobody seemed to take seriously except to criticize him for it. Who was telling the truth? Or was everyone telling their version of it, filtered through their own pain and perspective? Jasmine pulled out her phone. She had dozens of missed calls from Ryan, from her mother, from Keisha. But there was one number she needed to call first. She dialed. Trevor answered on the second ring. Jasmine? Oh, thank God. Are you okay? Ryan's been losing his mind. He thinks you're never coming back. Trevor, I need to ask you something, Jasmine said. And I need you to be completely honest with me. Can you do that? Of course. Anything. Did you know? About Ryan's family? About the money? There was a long pause. Yeah, I knew. Jasmine's heart sank. Another person who'd lied to her. How long have you known? Since college. Ryan and I were roommates at Harvard. I knew who his family was before we ever became friends. Trevor's voice was apologetic but firm. But Jazz, you have to understand, Ryan made me promise never to tell anyone. He was so desperate to have relationships that weren't about his money. I was respecting his wishes. Even if it meant lying to his fiancé. I didn't lie. I just didn't volunteer information that wasn't mine to share. Trevor sighed. Look, I know that sounds like a cop-out. And maybe it is. But Ryan is my best friend, and he's the most genuine person I know. Yeah, he comes from money. Yeah, his dad is a billionaire. But that's not who Ryan is. The man you fell in love with, the teacher, the volunteer, the guy who stays late to help struggling students, that's the real Ryan. The money is just an accident of birth. But it's still part of him, Jasmine said. And he hid it from me. Because he was terrified of losing you. Trevor's voice grew urgent. Jazz, I've known Ryan for over a decade. I watched him go through the Victoria situation. I watched him spiral, watched him hate himself, watched him nearly destroy his life trying to figure out who he was. And then he met you, and for the first time in years, I saw him genuinely happy. Not playing a role. Not pretending. Just happy. Jasmine closed her eyes. His father said Ryan has a pattern. That he runs when things get hard. His father is a controlling bastard who spent Ryan's entire life trying to shape him into a carbon copy of himself, Trevor shot back. Harrison Mitchell sees everything as a business transaction, including his relationship with his son. Yeah, Ryan runs. But maybe that's because every time he tries to stand still, someone tells him he's doing it wrong. So what am I supposed to do? Jasmine's voice broke. How am I supposed to trust him again? I don't know, Trevor admitted. That's something you have to figure out. But Jazz, if you walk away from Ryan because of what his father told you, you're letting Harrison win. And that man doesn't deserve to win. They talked for a few more minutes before Jasmine hung up. Then she sat on that bench, watching the lights of Charleston reflect off the water, and made her decision. She pulled up Ryan's contact in her phone and typed out a message. Meet me at our apartment. Tomorrow, noon. We need to talk. Really talk. No more lies. No more omissions. If we're going to have any chance of fixing this, I need to know everything. And I mean everything. Can you do that? She hit send before she could second-guess herself. Ryan's response came through in less than 30 seconds. Yes. I promise. Everything. Thank you, Jazz. Thank you for giving me this chance. I won't waste it. Jasmine stared at the message, then at the engagement ring she'd been carrying in her purse for the past 3 days. She didn't know if she could forgive Ryan. Didn't know if their relationship could survive this. But she knew she couldn't make that decision based on Harrison's version of the truth, or Ryan's version, or anyone else's. She needed to hear it all. The good, the bad, the ugly. And then she'd decide. For herself. Ryan arrived at the apartment at 11:45 a.m., 15 minutes early, carrying 2 cups of coffee from the cafe where they'd had their first official date. He set them on the kitchen counter, then paced the living room like a caged animal, rehearsing what he was going to say. When Jasmine walked through the door at exactly noon, his heart nearly stopped. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, her natural curls pulled back in a simple ponytail, wearing jeans and one of her old nursing school sweatshirts. But she was there. She'd come. That had to mean something. Hi, he said, his voice rough. Hi. Jasmine's tone was neutral, carefully controlled. She gestured to the coffee. Is one of those for me? Yeah. Caramel macchiato, extra shot. The way you like it. She picked up the cup but didn't drink from it. Instead, she walked to the couch and sat down, her posture rigid. Let's get started. Ryan sat in the chair across from her, not on the couch beside her. He understood that proximity was a privilege he'd lost. Thank you for doing this. For giving me a chance to. I went to see your father yesterday, Jasmine interrupted. Ryan felt the blood drain from his face. What? He called me. Invited me to his house. Told me I deserved to know the truth about you. Jasmine's eyes never left his face, watching for his reaction. He showed me emails between you and Victoria. Medical records from your therapist. He told me about your depression, about how you called off the wedding via email, about how you disappeared for 2 months without telling anyone where you were. Ryan's hands clenched into fists. He had no right. He had every right. Jasmine's voice was sharp. Because you weren't going to tell me any of that, were you? You were going to give me the sanitized version. The one where you're the hero and everyone else is the villain. That's not fair. Fair. Jasmine's composure cracked, anger flashing across her face. You want to talk about fair, Ryan? You lied to me for 3 years. You let me plan a wedding, a future, a life, all based on a person who doesn't exist. So no, I don't really care about what's fair to you right now. Ryan closed his eyes, absorbing the hit. She was right. God, she was right. Okay, he said quietly. You're right. So let me tell you everything. The real everything. And if you still hate me after, I'll accept that. Jasmine leaned back against the couch, her arms crossed. I'm listening. Ryan took a deep breath and began. My father was right about some things. I did struggle with depression. I was diagnosed 6 months before I was supposed to marry Victoria, and I didn't handle it well. I convinced myself that the problem was external, that if I could just change my circumstances, escape the pressure of my family and that world, I'd be okay. He ran his hands through his hair, the memories painful even now. Victoria didn't just want my money. She did love me. But she also loved the life we could build, and she couldn't understand why I was having such a hard time accepting it. To her, wealth was a gift. To me, it felt like a cage. We couldn't bridge that gap. So you ran, Jasmine said. So I ran, Ryan agreed. And yes, I did it via email. Because I'm a coward, like my father said. I couldn't face her, couldn't face the disappointment and hurt in her eyes. So I took the easy way out. He looked up at Jasmine, his eyes red-rimmed. I know that was wrong. I know I hurt her. And when I came to Charleston, when I started over, I promised myself I'd never do that again. I'd be honest. I'd be brave. I'd be better. But you weren't, Jasmine said flatly. You just traded one set of lies for another. I thought I was being honest, Ryan insisted. Everything I told you about myself was true. My love of teaching, my values, my beliefs, that's all real, Jazz. The only thing I hid was the money. The only thing, Jasmine repeated incredulously. Ryan, you didn't hide a bad habit or an embarrassing story. You hid your entire identity. Your family. Your past. The fact that you're the heir to a $12 billion fortune. That's not a small omission. I know that now. Ryan leaned forward, his voice desperate. But at the time, I genuinely believed I was protecting us. Protecting what we had. Because with Victoria, the money poisoned everything. Every decision we made, every conversation we had, it was always there, this third entity in our relationship. And I didn't want that with you. So you decided for both of us, Jasmine said. Just like you decided to call off your wedding to Victoria without talking to her about it. Just like you decided to cut your father out of your life without trying to work through your issues. You make unilateral decisions about other people's lives, Ryan. That's the pattern. Not the running, the controlling. The words hit Ryan like a physical blow. I never thought of it that way. I know you didn't. Because you convinced yourself you were being noble. Selfless. Protecting me from the corrupting influence of wealth. Jasmine's voice was bitter. But what you were really doing was taking away my agency. My right to make my own choices about what I could handle and what I couldn't. Ryan felt tears burning behind his eyes. You're right. God. Jazz. You're right. I told myself I was different from my father, but I did exactly what he does, made decisions for other people without their input. He stood up, needing to move. After I left Victoria, I spent 2 months in a cabin in the mountains, barely eating, barely sleeping, just trying to figure out who I was without the money. And I had this moment of clarity where I realized that wealth isn't inherently good or evil, it's what you do with it. But then I came to Charleston and met you, and I panicked. Because what if you saw the money and that became all you saw? What if I lost you before we even had a chance? So you lied, Jasmine said again, but her voice was softer now. Tired. So I lied, Ryan whispered. And I told myself it was temporary. That once we were solid, once I knew you loved me for me, I'd tell you everything. But days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and before I knew it, 3 years had passed and the lie was too big to untangle without destroying everything. He turned to face her. My father called me a few months ago. Said his health was declining. Asked me to come home, make peace before it was too late. And I almost did, Jazz. I almost told you everything then. But I was terrified. Because I knew the truth might mean losing you, and I couldn't face that. So instead, you let your father crash our wedding and expose you in front of everyone I love, Jasmine said. That was better. No. God, no. Ryan sank back into the chair, his head in his hands. There was no good way out. That's what I realized too late. The moment I lied to you about who I was, I'd already lost you. The wedding was just when it became public. The apartment fell silent. Outside, the sounds of Charleston filtered through the windows. Car horns, distant music, the normal rhythm of a city going about its day, oblivious to the drama unfolding in this modest apartment. Jasmine finally set down her untouched coffee. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Can you do that? Yes, Ryan said immediately. Anything. If I forgive you, if we somehow get past this and stay together, what happens next? Jasmine's voice was steady, but her eyes were searching. Do we keep living like this, pretending you're not a billionaire? Do we access your trust fund and move into a mansion? Do we compromise and find some middle ground? What does our life actually look like? Ryan had spent the past 3 days thinking about exactly this question. I don't know, he admitted. And I think that's something we'd need to figure out together. Not me deciding unilaterally. Not my father controlling from the sidelines. Together. What do you want? Jasmine pressed. Forget about me. Forget about your father. What do you actually want your life to look like? Ryan considered the question carefully. I want to keep teaching. That's non-negotiable for me. But I also think maybe it's time I stop pretending the money doesn't exist. Not because I want to live some lavish lifestyle, but because I could do real good with it. Fund programs for underprivileged kids. Create scholarships. Support the causes I care about. I've been so focused on proving I don't need the money that I never stopped to think about what I could do with it. He looked at Jasmine. But I also want to build a life with you. Whatever that looks like. If you want to stay in this apartment and live simply, we'll do that. If you want to use some of the money to pay off your student loans and travel the world, we'll do that. If you never want to see a penny of my family's fortune, I'll respect that. The point is, we decide together. And your father? Jasmine asked. He's not going to just disappear. He proved that by showing up at our wedding. My father and I need to have a real conversation, Ryan said. Not me running away or him trying to control me, but an actual, honest dialogue about boundaries and expectations. Maybe we can have a relationship, maybe we can't. But I need to stop avoiding him and face that head on. Jasmine was quiet for a long moment, processing everything. I talked to Trevor yesterday. Ryan nodded. He told me. He also told me he gave you his honest opinion, even though he knew it might hurt me. That's a real friend. He said you're the most genuine person he knows, Jasmine said. That the man I fell in love with is the real you, and the money is just an accident of birth. Do you believe that? Ryan asked. Jasmine stood up, walking to the window. I don't know what I believe anymore, Ryan. 3 days ago, I thought I knew you completely. Now I'm not sure I know you at all. She turned to face him, and Ryan saw tears in her eyes for the first time since this conversation started. I loved you so much. Do you understand that? I loved you with everything I had. And finding out you've been lying to me this whole time, it doesn't just break my heart. It makes me question my own judgment. It makes me wonder what else I've been blind to in my life. Jazz. Let me finish. Jasmine held up her hand. I've spent the past 3 days trying to figure out if I can forgive you. And the honest answer is, I don't know. Maybe eventually. Maybe never. But what I do know is that I can't make that decision right now, in the middle of all this pain and anger and confusion. Ryan felt his heart sinking. So what are you saying? I'm saying I need time. Real time. Not a few days, but weeks. Maybe months. Jasmine's voice was firm. I need space to process everything that's happened, to figure out who I am outside of us, to decide what I actually want from my life. Okay, Ryan said, even though the word hurt to speak. I understand. I'm going to stay with Keisha for a while, Jasmine continued. I'll come get my things this week. And Ryan, during this time apart, I need you to really work on yourself. Go to therapy. Talk to your father. Figure out who you actually are and what you want. Because I can't be the only one doing the emotional work here. I will, Ryan promised. I'll do whatever it takes. Jasmine walked to the door, then paused with her hand on the knob. Can I ask you one more question? Anything. That day in the hospital, when you asked me out after I saved your nephew, was any of that real? Or were you already playing a role? Ryan stood up, moving closer but keeping enough distance to respect her boundaries. My nephew really did have an asthma attack. I really was terrified I might lose him. And when you saved his life, when I saw how compassionate and skilled and utterly present you were, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. The possibility of something real. He swallowed hard. So yes, it was real. All of it. The worst thing I've ever done is take that real connection and build a relationship on lies. But my feelings for you, Jazz, those were never fake. Not for a single second. Jasmine nodded slowly, digesting this. I'll be in touch, she said. When I'm ready. Then she was gone. Ryan stood in the empty apartment, listening to her footsteps fade down the hallway, and felt the full weight of what he'd lost. 3 months later, Jasmine walked through the doors of Coastal Behavioral Health, her heart beating faster than she cared to admit. She'd gotten Ryan's text 2 days ago. I'd really like to talk. When you're ready. No pressure. Just, I miss you. She'd stared at that message for hours before finally responding, coffee? Thursday at 2. And now here she was, walking into the cafe attached to the therapy center where Ryan had been doing intensive work with a new therapist, Dr. Patricia Chen, who specialized in family trauma and identity issues. Ryan was already there, sitting at a corner table, looking different than she remembered. Lighter, somehow. Like a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. He stood when he saw her, a tentative smile crossing his face. Hi, he said. Hi, Jasmine replied. They sat down, the familiar awkwardness of two people who'd once known each other intimately now navigating new territory. You look good, Ryan said. Really good. Thanks. You too. And it was true. Ryan looked healthier, more settled in his own skin. They made small talk for a few minutes. How was work? How was Keisha? Had she seen the new exhibit at the museum? Before Ryan finally cut to the heart of it. I've been going to therapy 3 times a week, he said. Working through a lot of stuff. My relationship with my father, my issues with money and identity, my pattern of running from difficult situations. How's that going? Jasmine asked. Hard. Really hard. Ryan smiled ruefully. Turns out I've spent most of my adult life avoiding anything that makes me uncomfortable. Dr. Chen calls it escape-based coping. Instead of dealing with problems, I literally run away from them. That sounds accurate, Jasmine said, not unkindly. Yeah. Ryan took a breath. I also reconnected with my father. We're doing family therapy together, trying to rebuild some kind of relationship. It's messy and complicated, but we're actually talking for the first time in years. Jasmine felt something shift in her chest. Pride. Maybe. That's really good, Ryan. I'm proud of you. And I reached out to Victoria, Ryan continued. Apologized for how I handled things. We met for coffee last month. She lives in New York now, happy with her husband and kids. I told her I was sorry for being such a coward, for disappearing without giving her closure. She was gracious about it. More gracious than I deserved. Wow, Jasmine said softly. That must have been difficult. Terrifying, Ryan admitted. But necessary. I'm trying to face the things I've been avoiding. Including the biggest one. Which is? That I hurt you, Ryan said, his voice thick with emotion. I hurt you in ways I'm still discovering. And I am so sorry, Jazz. Not just for lying about my family and the money, but for taking away your choice. For deciding what you could handle without giving you a say. For treating our relationship like something I needed to control instead of something we built together. Jasmine felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you for saying that. I mean it, Ryan leaned forward. And I want you to know that I'm not sitting here expecting you to forgive me or take me back. I'm trying to be better. To be honest. To be the man I should have been from the beginning. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of 3 months and 3 years pressing down on them. Finally, Jasmine spoke. I've been doing my own work too. Therapy, journaling, a lot of long talks with Keisha and my mom. And I realized something important. What's that? I fell in love with you because you were kind and passionate and dedicated to making a difference. Those things are still true, regardless of your bank account or your last name. Jasmine met his eyes. But I also realized that I need a partner who trusts me enough to be fully honest. Who doesn't make decisions for me out of fear. Who shows up, even when it's hard. I want to be that person, Ryan said. I know you do. And I believe you're working toward it. Jasmine paused, choosing her words carefully. But Ryan, trust takes time to rebuild. And I'm not sure I'm there yet. Maybe I'll get there. Maybe I won't. But I can't promise you anything right now. Ryan nodded, and she could see the disappointment in his eyes, but also acceptance. I understand. And whatever you need, however long it takes, I'll respect that. There's something else, Jasmine said. I've been offered a position at a hospital in Atlanta. Better pay, more opportunities for advancement. And I'm thinking about taking it. She watched Ryan's face carefully, seeing the emotions play across it. Surprise, hurt, and then something else. Understanding. You should take it, he said finally. If it's what's best for you, you should absolutely take it. It would mean leaving Charleston. Leaving everything. I know. Ryan reached across the table, hovering his hand near hers but not touching. But Jazz, you've spent the past 3 years building a life around someone who wasn't being fully honest with you. Maybe it's time to build a life that's completely yours. Based on what you want, where you want to be, who you want to become. Jasmine felt something inside her break open, not painfully, but like a door opening to let in light. You really mean that? I really do. Ryan smiled, and it was genuine. I love you, Jasmine. I probably always will. But loving you means wanting what's best for you, even if that's not me. A tear rolled down Jasmine's cheek. When did you get so wise? About 3 months of intensive therapy ago, Ryan laughed. And I still have a long way to go. But I'm trying. They talked for another hour, about Ryan's work at the school, about Jasmine's plans for Atlanta, about small, inconsequential things that felt important because they were sharing them honestly. When it was time to leave, they hugged, a real hug, full of history and hurt and hope. Take care of yourself, Jasmine whispered. You too, Ryan replied. And Jazz? Thank you. For giving me a chance to apologize. For seeing me, really seeing me, even when I was too scared to let you. Jasmine pulled back, looking up at him. Maybe someday, when we've both done our work and figured ourselves out, we can try again. As the people we actually are, not who we thought we should be. Maybe, Ryan agreed. But no promises. No expectations. Just possibility. Just possibility, Jasmine echoed. She walked out of the cafe into the Charleston sunshine, feeling lighter than she had in months. She didn't know what the future held, whether she'd end up in Atlanta or somewhere else entirely, whether she and Ryan would find their way back to each other or move on to different lives. But for the first time since that devastating wedding day, she felt like herself. Fully, authentically herself. And that was enough. 1 year later, Jasmine stood in the lobby of Atlanta Memorial Hospital, checking her phone between shifts. She'd been at the hospital for 9 months now, and life had fallen into a comfortable rhythm. Challenging work, good colleagues, a cozy apartment in Midtown that was all hers. Her phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. They'd stayed in touch over the past year, texting every few weeks, occasional phone calls to check in. It was strange and sometimes painful, but also oddly comforting. They were learning to be something new to each other, not quite friends, not exactly exes, but two people who'd mattered to each other and still cared from a distance. "Wanted you to see this," Ryan's message read, with a link attached. Jasmine clicked it, and a news article loaded. Mitchell Family Foundation announces $50 million scholarship program for underserved youth. She scrolled through the article, reading about how Ryan Mitchell, heir to the Mitchell global fortune, had partnered with his father to create a foundation funding education programs in low-income communities. There was a photo of Ryan and Harrison standing together, both smiling. They looked, not fixed, but healing. "This is amazing, Ryan," she texted back. "I'm so proud of you." "Couldn't have done it without that kick in the ass from you and Dr. Chen," he responded. "I'm learning to make peace with the money. Use it for good instead of running from it. How's teaching?" "Still love it. Just got named Teacher of the Year for my district. But now I also spend time with the foundation, mentoring scholarship recipients. Best of both worlds." Jasmine smiled at her phone. "And your dad?" "We have dinner once a month. Still figuring it out, but we're talking. Really talking. He's actually not as terrible as I convinced myself he was. Just complicated." "Aren't we all?" Jasmine wrote. There was a pause, then, "How are you? Really?" Jasmine thought about it. "I'm good. Really good. I got promoted to charge nurse last month. Dating someone new, nothing serious yet, but it's nice. And I'm learning to trust myself again. To trust my judgment." "That's all I wanted to hear," Ryan responded. "You deserve all the happiness, Jazz. All of it." "You too, Ryan. You too." She was about to put her phone away when one more message came through. "Thank you. For everything. For seeing the best in me even when I wasn't ready to see it myself. For being brave enough to walk away when you needed to. For teaching me what real love looks like, the kind that wants the other person to be whole, even if that means letting go." Jasmine felt tears spring to her eyes, but they weren't sad tears. They were the tears that come from closure, from growth, from two people who'd hurt each other learning to heal separately. "Thank you too," she wrote back. "For being honest. Finally. For doing the work. For showing me that people can change if they really want to." She put her phone in her pocket and headed back to the nurse's station, where a patient was waiting, where her life was calling. Maybe someday, years from now, she and Ryan would find their way back to each other. Maybe they'd meet for coffee and realize they'd both grown into people who could build something real and honest together. Or maybe they wouldn't. Maybe this was how their story ended, two people who loved each other but needed to love themselves first. Either way, Jasmine was okay with it. Because she'd learned the most important lesson of all, she didn't need someone else to complete her story. She was writing it herself. Sometimes the greatest love is knowing when to let go. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose yourself. And sometimes, the person you thought was your happily ever after is actually the catalyst for becoming who you were always meant to be. What did you think of Jasmine's choice? Would you have made the same decision, or would you have given Ryan another chance? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective on love, forgiveness, and choosing yourself. Thank you for experiencing this journey with me. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear it.